This was a few years ago, but I still get this sick, heavy feeling in my chest when I think about it. Like my body knows something happened that I still can't process. And sometimes, when I'm driving at night with the windows down, I swear I can feel that same dry, suffocating air against my skin, as if the road itself remembers me. I was 25 at the time, just out of college and stupidly optimistic, trying to get from Phoenix, Arizona up to a small town in Colorado where a job was waiting for me. And because I was broke and thought it would be some kind of fun adventure, I loaded everything I owned into my old Honda Civic, tossed my camping gear in the trunk, and told myself I'd make the drive without worrying too much about where I stopped along the way. No hotels, no careful planning. Just me, the road, and whatever I stumbled into, which in hindsight was the dumbest thing I could have done. Things started out fine. Long, empty stretches of desert, radio crackling in and out, the kind of drive where the horizon feels like it never moves closer. And I was actually enjoying it until my fuel gauge started sinking dangerously low somewhere after crossing into New Mexico. Miles from anything familiar, no gas stations in sight, just miles of flat land with broken fences and sun-faded billboards advertising places that seemed like they hadn't existed for decades. And right when I started panicking, I saw a little hand-painted sign stuck in the ground with an arrow pointing down a side road that read simply, "Fuel and food" in sloppy black paint. So I took it without hesitation, desperate, convincing myself that in these forgotten corners, people still used makeshift signs like that instead of proper highway markers. The road was narrow and cracked, lined with weeds that brushed against the bottom of my car, and after a few minutes of bouncing along it, a cluster of buildings appeared in the distance, the kind of half-dead town you could tell had been shrinking for years, if not decades. A diner with a broken neon sign, a church missing half its steeple, and a squat gas station with two old pumps that looked older than my parents'. The whole place seemed too quiet, not abandoned exactly, but like it was holding its breath. And when I pulled up to the pump, I didn't see a single other car anywhere else, just a row of dusty windows reflecting the sun back at me. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I got out, swiped my card, nothing happened. And before I could curse at the machine, a man stepped out from the gas station door. Tall and thin, wearing coveralls smeared with oil, his face hard to read in the shade of the awning, and he asked in this flat monotone if I needed help. Something about his voice sent a shiver through me, but I forced a polite smile and said yes, I was low on gas and just trying to get back to the main highway. And he nodded slowly, too slowly, like he was thinking about something else, before saying he'd get the pump working for me. Disappearing inside for a few moments that stretched on too long enough that I considered just leaving, but then the pump clicked and the numbers started rolling. And I told myself I was being paranoid, people are just different out here, right? When I finished fueling, I went inside to pay, and the station smelled like stale coffee and mildew, the kind of smell that makes your eyes water. And behind the counter, he was leafing through some old newspaper, but never once actually looked me in the eyes when I asked him for directions, instead mumbling something about a shortcut that would save me time, telling me to head out past the grain silos and follow a dirt road for about 10 miles before it looped back to the highway. I don't know why, but his directions didn't sit right, because when I told him I thought the highway was much closer than that, he just gave this tiny smile without showing his teeth and shrugged like he knew something I didn't. And I swear in that moment, my stomach felt like it dropped through the floor. Like every nerve in me was screaming that something wasn't right, that I shouldn't trust him. But I was too polite, too nervous to argue, so I just thanked him and walked back out, hands trembling as I opened my car door, because suddenly the whole town felt like a trap, like the boarded up houses and sagging porches were leaning in, listening. I sat there for a few seconds, trying to steady my breathing, when another car pulled in. A beat-up old Chevy with a woman driving, maybe in her late 40s, sunburned face, hair tight back, and she gave me this quick glance as she got out like she could see the panic on me, because before even going to the pump, she walked straight over and asked me where I was headed, and when I told her, she frowned and said the fastest way back was a little turnoff just beyond the diner, less than half a mile down the road. And when I mentioned the directions the clerk had given me, her expression shifted into something sharp, almost angry. And she asked me if I was sure he'd said that. And when I nodded, she muttered under her breath and shook her head, telling me firmly not to take that dirt road under any circumstances, that it didn't lead back to the highway, that it led deeper into the desert where people went to disappear, and that if I valued my safety, I should leave now and not come back. My chest tightened so badly I thought I was going to faint, because the certainty in her voice left no room for doubt. And I realized in that instant that if I hadn't hesitated, if she hadn't pulled in when she did, I might have driven straight into whatever was waiting out there. I thanked her, tried to sound calm, but inside I was shaking so badly my legs felt like jelly. And when I started the engine and pulled back onto the cracked road, I glanced in the mirror and saw the clerk had come outside, standing perfectly still under the awning, his head tilted just slightly like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. And even though it was bright afternoon, I felt this wave of dread as if the sun itself had dimmed. I followed the woman's directions, found the hidden turnoff she'd mentioned, and sure enough, within minutes, I was back on the highway. Cars rushing past, and I've never felt such overwhelming relief in my life. But as I sped away, I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. How isolated that town was. How there have been no signs for it on the main road. How the man never once looked me in the eyes, and worst of all, the way that dirt road seemed like it was meant for me, like someone had been waiting for a traveler desperate enough to take it. I still don't know what would have happened if I'd gone that way. Maybe nothing. Maybe I would have ended up in some dead end surrounded by rusted trailers and strange families who didn't want me there. Or maybe it would have been worse, something I can't even let myself imagine without my chest tightening. But what I do know is that I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Because out of all the empty roads and timing in the world, that woman pulling in at the exact moment she did feels like something bigger than luck. And every time I drive alone through a desolate stretch of highway, I keep my eyes sharp for hand-painted signs and towns that don't appear on maps. Because the scariest thing isn't what I saw, it's knowing that I almost let someone guide me straight into the kind of place people vanish from without a trace.